All right. Discussion to Truth, Seek and Destroy Metallica. Seek out and destroy corruption, folks, and it's happening at an unprecedented rate across this country. It just simply is. I remember riding my skateboard down Lombard Street as a kid, and I'd listen to songs like this and Ride the Lightning. Lars Ulrich. I have happened to have met Lars. Very, very nice person. Very sweet, nice gentleman, nice guy. Yeah, I probably said hi to him or something. I didn't exchange any dialogue with him. But our next guest does come from San Francisco. It is a city that I lived in for 8 years. I lived in San Francisco for 8 years. You know, you people may not know that if you've listened to some of my earlier. I don't typically talk about that, but I do reveal that on my website. That I do write about that. I lived in the marvelous, beautiful city. In fact, my family name has been there. My ancestry has been there since over 100 years, 1916. Trottier arrived in Quebec City in 1640. From La Rochelle, France, aboard Le Cardinal. It's the name of the ship, as a matter of fact. He was a carpenter. He was building cathedrals. So he'd been hired to do so in Quebec. But beautiful city. I have not been back in a while. It's been a while since I've been to San Francisco. But anyway, Metallica, originally from Los Angeles, growing to fame. From the San Francisco-based, or Oakland, or Berkeley, what it was, Cliff Burton, who was their bassist that died in a trip in Germany, was it? Somewhere in Europe. So what we had this week was Kyle Rittenhouse acquitted of all charges, and boy, is that disturbing for a lot of people. We have a former assistant federal prosecutor who will be joining us right now. We're going to call him in. I just ended with Peter McCullough, Dr. Peter A. McCullough out of Dallas, Baylor University, that had some interesting things to say, pretty clearly. He says that the COVID-19 is engineered in the laboratory, and he does not recommend the vaccines, these so-called vaccinations. And we started today at that 5 o'clock slot with Mark Shaw, who's joined us now 4 times. First joined the program back in 2017. October 2017. So John is also the author of Postgate, How the Washington Post Betrayed Deep Throat. Yeah, threat or throat. I can't read that. Covered up Watergate, and this is blurry here. Anyway, we get in this there with John Oconnor, and sorry I've blipped on the rest of that title there. But bring John on right now, because I'm sure he is standing by. Postgate. There we go. John Oconnor. Postgate is we can talk about that with him.
Hello.
Yes, John. Ian Trottier here. Welcome to Discussions of Truth.
Hey, how you doing?
Fantastic. I'm doing great. Great reception. How are you, sir?
Fantastic. I hope we can keep this good reception. I'm near LA right now, on the grapevine above LA, so I think we're gonna have pretty good reception.
Fantastic, John. Hey, look, we got an interesting week here, and it sounds like you've got. Well, take a minute and introduce yourself to listeners. Who are you? What kind of work have you done?
Yeah, my name's John O'Connor. I've been a lawyer for 49 years, mainly a trial lawyer. I was with the government for a while, and then as a private practitioner, represented a lot of government agencies like the Savings and Loan, FSLIC, FDIC during the Savings and Loan crisis, and done a number of jury trials throughout the United States. And I was always interested in Watergate. Ended up figuring out that Mark Felt was deep throat, talked him into coming out, and we've done a couple books together on this.
That's very interesting that you'd gotten into Watergate. It sounds like you got a passenger. You're in an automobile. You got a kid there with you.
Yeah, he's not really talking much. I think I'm okay, but you tell me if you want to do this some other time, because I don't hear him right now. But
no, that's. I was just gonna say hi to him. Just tell him he was saying hi.
Hey, John, he says hi to you.
Okay, so look, so is that anyway? So John, talk a little bit about this Watergate. The book that you've written is exposing the Washington Post, and the title of the book is called Postgate. What were your findings in this book? What caught you by surprise?
Well, I had always been a great fan of the reporting of the Post Watergate. We always contrasted it with today's sort of bad media, which often gets facts wrong and intentionally hides. And so Post and different. They kept putting my head, so to speak, in the dumpster so many times that I began to smell something. And I detail it all in the book. It's too lengthy, but it's very intriguing. I'll just say that my interactions with the Post. So I said, something, there's something fishy here. I'm going to go back and find out if they hid these facts that we now know today, and at the time.
Let's see. I think we've lost Johnny. He was on the grapevine. Let me try to bring him back. See if we can bring him back. He did warn us of this. Let's see if we can bring John back on here. John Oconnor, former assistant federal prosecutor. See if he's got the reception.
Yeah, sorry about that. We must have lost each other, and of course I'm on this windy road. But in any case, I began suspecting that perhaps the Post was covering up something in a very took the effort, and this is the kind of personality I am. I got all 3,000 articles the Post published during the 2-year period, and analyzed them, went through transcripts of hearings, went through FBI reports, all the evidence that I could get, and also tried to figure out what the Post knew, what it didn't know, what was there for it to know. And I came to the conclusion that they had intentionally covered up the real truth about Watergate. And the way I see it connecting to today's journalism is that I think, in a way, that the Post started out this way. They wanted to protect the DNC. They're very close to the DNC, the Democratic National Committee, which would not cover itself with glory as to what they were doing at the time. So they probably just started out thinking, well, we'll just omit some details. Well, as it turns out, they got further and further into it. And as they got further into it, they were more and more successful at hooking this whole thing onto Nixon. Nixon's White House shared some blame for this. There were some minor figures. The top people didn't know this had happened, but besides that, the CIA was involved, and the DNC was engaging in a referral program of out-of-town men to eager young women down the street. And that's what everybody was listening to. Well, it had nothing to do with the campaign. It had to do with, the good old age-old story of men and women. So, so I came to the conclusion that the Post, and I document this pretty thoroughly, like a lawyer should, and I think I make my case that the Post intentionally covered up the truth about Watergate. And what it did was, it was so successful that if you want to be a journalist today, you do the same thing. If you want to get somebody, if you're going to do investigative journalism, that's the same thing as prosecutorial journalism. That is, you want to get somebody. And if I go into court alone and I don't have any opposition, am I going to tell everybody the whole truth? Human nature says no. If you've got money riding on something, are you going to just voluntarily poke all the holes in your story? No, you're not going to do it. And that's what we have today. We have people really following the Watergate blueprint for people who want to get fame and fortune and influence political outcomes. That was one of the lessons of Watergate. If you slant the story strongly enough, you will influence political outcomes to the point where you can actually get rid of the president of the world's most powerful country. Think about that. When a newspaper can get rid of the world's most powerful political figure. So there is no end to that power. And power corrupts, absolute power corrupts absolutely. And that's what we have as a result of Watergate. And that's why you'll find today that if you want to get Joe Biden elected, you just don't mention this nasty little detail of Hunter Biden's laptop. So that's where we are today. It's a straight line from Watergate.
So, John, how does that portray on big tech in your opinion? You're in California. You're based in San Francisco. How does this reflect on the censorship that we're seeing in big tech? Do you draw any parallels?
Well, yeah. In addition to this, in addition to the fact that the press learned about concealment in Watergate, you also have a common trend, whether we call it deplatforming, cancel culture, whatever. It all comes from a new left doctrine that started in the 60s and took hold with the people who are now professors. But it's called liberating tolerance. That is, it is okay to be intolerant as long as you're intolerant only of repressive ideas. So you should push liberating ideas, and it's okay to not tolerate repressive ideas. So what we have is, in the tech field, we now have the weapon of misinformation. In the guise of trying to keep misinformation off their sites, the big tech people are trying to control information. They're not just there as neutral platforms, as they've always described themselves. Gee, we're just here to provide a platform. We're not here to judge whether people are telling the truth or not. But actually, they're doing that now. Now, if you want to say, if you're an opponent of vaccination, I happen to be a proponent of vaccination, but I think any opponent of vaccination should have the right to speak as long and as loudly as they want. And but yet, big tech has other ideas. Big tech has the evidence is very strong that they have skewed the results of recent elections. They changed a lot of votes for Hillary Clinton even when she lost, and they're doing that. I mean, look who put all the drop boxes around the country, Mark Zuckerberg, and in exchange, he insisted that his nonprofit team be placed in charge of certain election sites, and they were. Here we have a private company coming in and running our elections in some jurisdictions. So we have big tech, and big tech is very much a beneficiary of some of the policies of progressive government. And unlike the regular small businessmen who may get driven out of business if costs go up, but that is not true of big tech. Big tech and big finance make a lot of money from progressive policies. So we're seeing today that big tech is on the side of big media, and they're all doing this together. They're all interested in the same goal, and they do a good job from their perspective of putting their thumb on the scale.
Yeah, and it seems that the culture that the DNC has adapted is lockstep with that of big tech in 2021. Do you see that as well?
Oh, sure. I mean, I'm here in the Bay Area, and probably 90% of the tech employees are left leaning, and some of that is because their business does not depend upon normal supply demand like so many other businesses. Throughout our history, businesses tend to be conservative, but once you get into businesses like entertainment or tech, where your profitability is not necessarily tied to regular factors of supply, demand, cost of materials, and so forth and so on, uh, you uh, you tend to be more progressive and lefty, especially if your markets are in China, for example. I think we see that the DNC is tied to big media, is tied to big tech. So that's the triumvirate. And now what we get in Russiagate, we get people who are wise enough, FBI officials who are wise enough to know they can never go wrong with the media as long as they're on the left side of things. And that's James Comey and his group. And of course, they have the double incentive of knowing that Hillary's going to win in 2016. So they put their thumb on the scale. Much of it using the media, much of it using leaks to help them out, to justify their ambitions. And so this is a whole. And so what happened is Donald Trump simply upset the apple cart. Nobody, including Trump, thought he was going to win. And so lo and behold, now they get their actions scrutinized, and very luckily they have delays because of both the Mueller investigation and the COVID deal. So now it's just now that people are being held accountable for really blatant dishonesty in Russiagate. As Winston Churchill said, lies go halfway around the world before truth gets its pants on, and that's what we've got here.
Interesting. Yeah, San Francisco is a great place, and some listeners may know this, but I actually lived in that city for 8 years. Wonderful city to live in. Let's get to some of the social disturbances that the country's faced in the past couple of years, and I want to get your opinion and some insight on Kyle Rittenhouse and that acquittal of all charges. What are some comments you have, John, in regards to that decision and how he should move forward regarding defamation?
Well, let me say this. Let me start off with the easy question first, which is Kyle is going to be a very rich man very soon, and this is dead bang. Some of the stuff that was said about him was just factually untrue. You can give any opinion you want, and you're not subject to defamation. But if you make a factual statement about somebody, he left Northern Illinois with a weapon intending to kill people. No, he didn't do that. He's a racist. He showed anti-black bias. No, he didn't. He was very much in favor of BLM, not their tactics, but very much in favor of the ends and goals of their organization, and was very respectful to it. There are so many different lies that were told. He's going to get wealthy. Now, of course, I think the prosecution felt, just to quell any more civil disturbances. Once Rittenhouse shot people, they almost felt they had to. Everybody was running scared. And what I'll say is this: we're getting very much to a place that we were in America where people were afraid to acquit black people on trial, that everybody wanted to race to convict black people, especially in the South, especially in the late 1800s and so forth. And that's well known. And the juries got intimidated, and they're afraid to issue an acquittal of black people. And now we have just the reverse thing happen, and it's just neither scenario is good for America, where we're looking at people on the basis of the color of their skin and not who they are, not as individuals with rights that come from their divine human nature. So I really feel terrible about it. But I think, once again, we talk about the media. Much of this is fed by the media. So the media jumps on this story. They've got their story, and they get the story before they get the facts. Now they get the facts. The facts don't matter. And so all of a sudden, we have all these things being made up, and people tend to, and that's where they're getting in trouble on defamation. They come up with their story. They need to sustain it. And so it becomes more than just opinion. They have to justify it with some facts, and then they get the facts wrong. So we have an example here. When we had the Duke lacrosse people charged, immediately the narrative had to be, oh, it's white guys, picking on some poor black girl. So once that narrative was established, it doesn't matter what evidence comes out. Like one of the assailants was photographed at a fast food place when he supposedly was committing a rape. And, the whole story didn't stick together for various reasons. But that's just an example of the media now comes up with a storyline. You have a bunch of people in the major media who all know what their storyline's supposed to be. It's supposed to be in accord with prevailing political wisdom, whatever that may be, because they're all interested in pushing political agenda. So that's where we are today, and it's very sad that we now no longer the media, the major media. I find local radio and so forth, and podcasters much more in tune with the American people and normal common sense than you find with some of these major media outfits. So that's where we are today, and it's very sad.
And what's your personal view on Rittenhouse? Do you think it was appropriate that he took that weapon of that magnitude to that situation?
Well, yeah, let's think about this. Of course, and nobody wants to say, oh, gee, it's fine to bring a weapon. Oh, isn't that terrible? But wait a second. Are we to say, let me ask you this, if somebody is going to burn down your house, do you think it's okay for you to get a weapon and prevent it? I think so, and scare people off like the McCloskeys did in St. Louis. Actually, for our country's history and for all Western civilization's history, you have been able to use deadly force not only for self-defense, but even in defense of a felony, defense of your property. It's been a defense for hundreds and hundreds of years. If somebody is trying to damage your property, you can shoot them. You can shoot to kill if you need to. Now, in most jurisdictions, they kind of tamp that down. They don't want people shooting anybody just because they're burglarizing their house. But the point is, it's always been part of our Western tradition that is so. And for most of society, Western society, people did not call the police. Gee, you're at a ranch, 50 miles out of nowhere. You're supposed to. You don't have. Nobody had phones until God knows when. What are you supposed to do? Say, hey, excuse me, before you shoot me, I'd like to go make a call to the police. It's going to take me a week to get into town and get the sheriff. Do you mind waiting? No, you pick up your shotgun and you say, get out of here. That's what you do. And we have a right to defend ourselves. We have a right to defend our property. I'm not big. I'm not a big gun guy. But, if things got unruly enough, and they're getting very unruly in the San Francisco area, by the way, at my advanced age, I may have to go out and start taking some weapon safety lessons and so forth, because it's very, very scary what's happening. I don't know if you've been reading the papers at all about San Francisco, but the whole law and order system has broken down. And you're not safe to park a car on a nice street in a nice part of San Francisco. That car is going to get broken into in a nanosecond. And if you have a store, watch out for people just coming up, pulling up their cars, coming in and emptying your store. Um, so they've had some chilling events in the very toniest parts of San Francisco. And what's even more chilling, it's kind of like we're seeing a coronavirus hop from one place to another. There's a lovely suburb in the East Bay named Walnut Creek, which has some tremendous. And you have a 415 area code. I know you're from the area. You said you lived here, but Walnut Creek is turned into a very sort of upscale place with a good place for sort of the big regional shopping centers, and so you have some very nice stores there. Well, the other day, and I don't know, it might have been a Nordstrom's. I think it was a Nordstrom's in Walnut Creek. 80 people pulled up in a planned attack, and they came in together, jumped out of the car, had various weapons with them like crowbars and this and that, and ran into the store in an organized fashion, looted it, and came out and get in their car and buzzed away. There was a similar thing happening on Union Square in San Francisco. In each case, they've caught a few of the people. But up to this point in San Francisco, they haven't been, and environs, they have not been um, charging people for stealing less than $1,000 a piece. So it has emboldened people, and they realize it's very easy money to just go get, just anytime you can break into a car and get $1,000, gee, you're home free. Why not do it? The profit motive prevails. So there is no deterrence, and part of law enforcement is deterrence, and we have none here. So the reason I say this is it feeds into our story about Kyle Rittenhouse. It's now that's okay. It's okay to destroy cities. I mean, have major media really spoken up about the burning of all these cities? With really, come on now. I know people are upset about George Floyd, but it wasn't. A lot of these riots were not spontaneous at all. They were. There are many orchestrating features. Let's put it that way. And and of course, there wasn't an Apple store that remained untouched during those riots, or a Target, or whatever you name your store. They all got cleaned out. So, um, but the people that are supposed to be curating public opinion and really saying the right things are not doing it, and that's the media. They seem to tell people, the signal, that this is okay. So the left is always talking about dog whistles. Anything any conservative or middle of the road people say that can possibly be construed as being anti-black or conservative is called a dog whistle. You're not really saying anything racist, but boy, we're looking at it as racist. Well, you talk about dog whistles. You look at CNN or MSNBC, and they're issuing dog whistles all the time, saying it's okay to do this. Boy, these are nice people that are burning these cities, and don't call them rioters. These are peaceful protesters where just a few people are bad, and a little this and that has gone wrong, and okay, so a city burned down. What the heck? That's okay. And boy, isn't it terrible if Trump calls out the National Guard? Well, forget about Trump, whether you like him or hate him. I mean, the question is are these people giving dog whistles, saying, gosh, all of this that you're doing is okay. As long as you've got a racial justice motive, then it's okay to do whatever you want. And so if you're in that environment and you're an impressionable young kid, you're going to say, hey, this is okay. And it's almost noble of me. It's almost like I'm Martin Luther King. I'm going to go rob a store. Well, we've gone a long way, and it's a backward way in our thoughts about about achieving opportunity for people in this country. We're starting to go backwards.
Yeah, it is, and it's in an opposite direction now. It seems on many instances now the white male is the prosecuted or persecuted rather. Zach Voorhees is somebody that I've worked with in the past year. He's a whistleblower for Google. But I was, and he's spoken a little bit about the changes there in Northern California and San Francisco. I was not aware, and for listeners should be identifying that the current administration, you've got Kamala Harris, and certainly Nancy Pelosi, that's been involved in 4 administrations since I think the late '90s. I may be wrong. This is San Francisco culture, so it's a shame to hear this lawlessness. John, I want to get your opinion on media. Why is it? You mentioned smaller voices such as this program that I do. These podcast, the alternative voices. And I've had Ray McGovern on this show 3 years ago. He's a guy that worked for the CIA for 27 years. And being persecuted for speaking out against corruption in the CIA, he hand delivered briefings to George Bush Sr. in the Oval Office. That's where he was in the CIA, a trusted source. He said over 3 years ago, he said that this was the remaining element of freedom of speech in America. That's not exactly what he said, but something of that nature. It's on my website. Why is it that mainstream media has become become tainted in this regard. What are your views? You know, you're going back to the Washington Post and the work that they were doing in the Watergate and the cover-up. Why is it? Have we just allowed mainstream media to become these kind of greedy monsters that just kind of sell their own narratives, or what's going on there in your view?
Well, that's some of it, but remember, this whole thing started with Watergate, and for years, everybody thought. First of all journalists generally come. People out of the more elite colleges tend to come out as liberals. Now, over time, they would become more conservative. But so our schools, especially, mainly have professors, from the 1960s who have the ideas that I talked about earlier, like uh, uh, Herbert Marcuse's Liberating Tolerance and so forth, uh, and Saul Alinsky. And so you have a liberal bias is one thing that's happening. And then what we have also is that, these things are run out of Manhattan. They're run out of, the media's run out of one of the bluest of the blue cities. And the other media center, of course, is Los Angeles. And that's a very blue city. And of course, San Francisco is very influential in the tech world. So you have a certain people with a certain mindset that are running these things, and they have a view of life, and they don't understand the rest of the country. That's really pretty clear. They'd understand it at any time. So um, and also if you're one of the big networks, you have a monopoly. That monopoly, at least an oligopoly, and your advantage is not going away. So even if you're CNN and you're losing to Fox, say, you're still getting a pretty healthy chunk of viewers. You're still able to sell advertisement. And the angrier you get on your show, and the more you make your audience angry, then the more eyeballs you're going to keep. You may not keep as many as Fox News, but you're going to keep them, and you're going to be able to monetize them, and you're going to make a healthy profit. Nobody's worried about the profitability of any of the major news networks. And so we have it. It's very easy, and so they perpetuate themselves. Think about it. If you're a young journalist getting out of school, you know that you can't get a job if you're going to in any way portray yourself as a middle of the road or a conservative, a traditional liberal, I would say, free market type of person. So you're not going to get that job. So there's a self-selection process, and you're considered good. Oh, she's good. He's good. They're good if you have the right slant on things, and you can take any story and put the right slant on it. And if you do that, boy, you're a genius. If you can take the most mundane problem of American life, the most mundane stress, and if you can relate it to climate change, boy, there you are. I mean, my gosh, this is happening because of climate change. You name something that doesn't come from climate change, and so what wonderful journalists they are that they figured out that runny noses are the result of climate changes, and people's anxiety. Well, that's climate change, and you name it. Species are changing. Well, since the ice age, this has happened. I mean, there's been climate variability, but now the beautiful thing about climate change is that it skews left. The only way to deal with climate change is to go very lefty and have sort of a socialist attitude on things. And that's how it all started. It all started with a guy named Maurice Strong, who was an avowed socialist, who started this whole thing with the United Nations Committee about 30 years ago. And he's worked it and gotten everybody to go on it. And he's got a credulous media, once again, that will go along and push. And I'm not making this up. Maurice Strong has said that climate issues are one of the reasons we have to be socialist. So most people don't draw that conclusion, but that's the way it started. That's the motivation behind it. So we have a whole group of people who have a bias, and there's such a thing as a confirmation bias. Once you get a bias, and this is the way you think, you're going to try to confirm it. It's not the human tendency to say, something, I was wrong. I really was thinking wrongly. I know I went through that conversion, myself. I was a young man. I was much more left than I am today. But when I saw the evidence change, I changed. But most people, it's not what most people do.
Legal analyst and author John Oconnor has joined us. He's the author of Postgate, How the Washington Post Betrayed Deep Throat, Covered Up Watergate, and Began Today's Partisan Advocacy Journalism, and the host of Mysteries of Watergate podcast. John, thank you for joining the program today. What are some final words that you'd like listeners to walk away with?
What I would say is, don't be afraid. People are afraid even to tell pollsters that they may have a slightly conservative view, and today conservatives really aren't that conservative at all. They're really traditional liberals. But we're afraid to speak up. We get cowed by voices on the media, canceling, deplatforming, shaming. We all have to be brave and speak our truth. It's more important now than ever.
John, thank you for joining the program, and once again, tell Little John there thank you as well.
I will. He's having fun. He's singing now, so thanks for bearing with both Johns, huh?
All right.
Take care. See you.
Okay, sorry, I cut John off. Maybe he was saying "see you then." I don't know. I'll follow up with an email. Probably not too important there, but I had no idea that this mayhem. You commit a crime if there's no financial tag that's greater than $1,000. It's not an offense. It's not chargeable. Is that what did I get that right? There's a price tag now on these certain crimes. I laugh, but it's not. This is not a laugh. This is not a laughing issue, folks. If you want socialism, go to a socialist country. I'm going to draw the line there. Okay, go to a socialist country. Go learn Chinese. Go learn Russian. Go live in a socialist. So if you listen to the work, if you follow the work that I've been doing, probably the greatest thing you could do right now, shift gears for yourself and remember why the country was started. Go back to the roots. So follow the money, right? So in 2016, I'm exposed to the Zika virus. My best friend says, "Hey, go listen to this." Argument at the city hall. I says, "Wow, why are all these people irate? Why are they screaming? Why is it that a small group of people is dictating what they're going to be inhaling?" And that's how it started with me. And then I was led to the banking fraud through this guy Sutton. That's how it all began. And then, holy cow, I take 5 years of a complete educational research. I mean, outside of doing these shows and then my 9 to 5, every waking hour I discover the fraud, the truth. I dig it up so I can give it to you, so I can deliver it to you. Why? Because, as I said last hour, I'm doing this for myself just as much as I'm doing it for you, because I appreciate the freedoms and liberties that I grew up in, that I enjoy, that I'm currently, like John said, speak your mind, speak out. He just said that. The former federal prosecutor, he just said that to you. He just said, speak out. Don't be shy. Don't be afraid. Speak your mind. So if you approach it from, okay, well, the country was founded upon pilgrims leaving a tyrannic religious order, yes, so seeking freedom to practice religion freely, you may take this for granted. The fact that you are Catholic listening to this, or maybe you are Jewish listening to this, or maybe you are Buddhist. I don't know. I don't care what your religion is. Frankly, I don't care. Why don't I care? Because you're likely living in a peaceful manner, and you respect other people's religions as other people respect yours. Okay, so yeah, fine. There's an intricate thread. There's an intricate management of how that integrates to government, but it's worked pretty good so far for almost 250 years. It's worked pretty good. The fact of the matter is, government should be giving you freedom of religion, but okay, hold on a second. So if you approach what's happening to the United States today from a theological, not theoretical, a theological perspective, then you start to follow some of these ancient money lines, these old money lines. What is it? Anything over 100 years is ancient? I don't know what the definition is. But then you start to follow. No, antique, I think, is what confusing that. I don't know what ancient means. Then you start to follow. Then you start to follow, by definition. And then you start to follow some of these old money lines, and you're getting to the House of Medici, the House of Orsini, Alder Bandini, and so the names that are thrown around. So the names that are thrown around commonly are certainly Rockefeller, and in the newer years, you've got Gates, you got these, the Bezos. You sure you have these people, Zuckerberg, or you have. How about Carlos Slim? But you have some of these these Americans now. But then you're getting I've had David Icke on the program. Andy Thomas has been on the program. Now you're getting some of these British folk that are saying, "Oh yeah, the Rothschild. They've made it their empire to control other people's governments. Because if you control their banking institution, then you can control their government. But you got to control the bank." And this is the argument that I've been making, which is not something I've discovered. I've just learned. I've learned it. I've come across it because I've seen it spoken by many people over the course of 5 years since I've been doing this program. The Federal Reserve Central Bank is a monopoly. It's anti-constitutional. It's not constitutional, folks. It's against your rights. It suppresses you. And it is a Rothschild, not even a Rothschild, but it is a Roman, I said it, yeah. It is a Roman form of manipulation. Now, you manipulate a country's banking system, and Ian, there's no banking manipulation in the United States. We can just print more money and pay off our debt. Baloney. That's totally and completely incorrect. A very fastly approaching $30 trillion federal debt. Yet regardless of Republican or Democrat, whoever gets into the Oval Office continues to spiral this nation out of control and debt. You should be furious. You should be absolutely furious if you're an American. And you should be demanding answers, demanding transparency. It's not a laughing matter. Because then the socialist golden wand, right? Then, I can just print you more money. You'll be my slave. I'm not talking black, white, Asian. Anybody that buys into the banking monopoly is a slave. You are a slave. It doesn't seem like it because you can go down to the store and you can still buy a candy bar or a jug of milk or whatever it may be, a pasta salad, without a microchip. Oh, but Ian, hold on, microchip, now you're getting really far off base. Really far off base? Look at ID 2020. Look at quantum dot tattoo. Look at the article that this woman out of Ireland sent me. Took her 3 years to write. I put it up on Medium, and within 2 hours, the whole article, 15 pages, taken down, and the account is abolished. Why? Because the information she had researched is against someone else's best interest. So whoever's owning Medium, Microsoft, it's against their best interest. It's exposing science. It's exposing fact. It's exposing credible research. That the overall hand, the bank, let's just say the bank, does not want exposed. So approach things from a theological perspective, and then give your search engine a query for Eric John Phelps. Okay, the man's very religious. I happen to be I'm not religious. Okay, I've been involved in religion in the past. I know very well religion in my own life, but I'm not religious. And I don't conduct this platform from a religious perspective. Even though the country is founded on it, isn't it? The Pilgrims were religious, weren't they? Yeah, of course they were religious. William Penn were religious. Right? But I don't. Because I approach it from a platform of religious freedom. And like I said, I don't care what your religion is. But if you approach things from a religious perspective, then you can kind of say, "Oh, wait a second, right?" So this over encroaching, monopolistic, manipulative hand, well, could very well. It's not, it's cliche, isn't it? All roads lead to Rome. So how much of another person's definition of what existence is could be showing its head in American culture today. Give a listen to Eric John Phelps and the recent article that I wrote and published on my website, iantrottier.com, talks about a specific order inside of this institution. It is a militant order. What is the genius approach? What would be the genius approach? This is what Prescott Bush applied by funding the Nazi regime. He did through the Union Bank. He funded the Nazi regime. What is the ingenious approach to war? Financing it. Staying out of it, yet financing it. It sounds like Switzerland. It should. Put your money in Switzerland. Be safe. Oh, we stay neutral. We're not going to get into it. Yet the banks are funding the wars. The Rothschild. That's how they made their wealth. Again, controlling a government. The Queen of England does not control the United Kingdom. She reports to the City of London. The City of London controls her. The City of London is a bank. It's a sovereign nation unto the UK. It's not part of the United Kingdom. William the Conqueror was unable to conquer it in 1066. It's an old Roman banking mechanism. What controls it? In my view, my research, the Vatican. It controls it. Just look at the facts. Just look at the history. Just look at the history is all. So could it be possible that the Vatican has a controlling interest through the Rothschild of the Federal Reserve Central Bank? Yeah, absolutely. It could be a strong possibility. But here's the problem. You don't know that because the Federal Reserve Central Bank shareholders are private information. Unless I'm wrong, and please send me. Please correct me. Please correct me. If the Federal Reserve Central Bank is ran by the U.S. Congress, then it does make it constitutional. And what Anthony Sabazzini said on this program 4 weeks ago, Florida politician, would be incorrect, because he stated that it's unconstitutional, it needs to be repealed. So then you're saying that he's correct. He's incorrect. So if he's incorrect and I'm incorrect, then please correct us. We misunderstand. And so do people like Ron Paul, and so do people like G. Edward Griffin. There are many people that are telling you and saying to you, you are controlled by an unconstitutional, illegal bank. And if you think it's just coincidence, I would beg to differ, so prove me wrong. $30 trillion federal debt? It doesn't sound like, what's it, 28.9? I don't know what it is. The United States is in big trouble. And do you think that a power that's been around for hundreds of years, almost 2,000 years, it's still around? You think that power could not be and want to encroach and destroy some of your freedoms? Because from a theological, religious perspective, you are the enemy unless you conform to its religion? Look at the natives of Mexico, the Aztecs. Look at the conquistadors. They were slaughtered if they didn't conform. That's a fact. That is a fact. Their history was burned. Their beliefs were burned. They were destroyed. They were killed if they refused to conform to the conquest. Okay, this is a fact. This is a fact. This is a fact. So could that same mechanism not be in play here today? I urge you to consider that yes, possibly it very well could be. And I'm telling you right now. That it is. I'm telling you right now that it is. This has been another discussion of truth, folks. And and I won't stop. And I urge you not to stop, because we, if you will, foot soldiers, right? We're the folks on the ground level. At least if you're, I don't know if you are or not, but it's us. We the people. I don't care what your ethnicity is. I don't care where you're from. I don't care what your religion is. I don't care what your academic background is. You enjoy the fruits of the Constitution and Bill of Rights and what this country is built on, those freedoms, then you must act now. You must stand up, make your voice heard, and be firm with your conviction. And as John O'Connor said, do not be afraid. Let your voice be heard. Folks, ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for listening. I will continue doing what I'm doing. I urge you to continue listening to me and the many other voices of independence and liberty out there, and freedom, and support them. Pass the work on. Tell a friend right now. Tell a family member as you sit around the Thanksgiving table. Tell someone you care about. And tell someone you don't care about. Tell someone about the work that I've been doing. IanTrottier.com. Go to the research tab. Look at my articles. I've submitted the work on the for politicians. I submitted over 600 politicians. And ladies and gentlemen, be awesome.